Pledge of Allegiance. Ma'am.
Let us pray. God, we take this time to pause, not because we need the additional time in our lives to discern, but because we know that as long as you're in this space, then we can bring forth the spirit of camaraderie as we have seen prior to this meeting starting. Allow us to discern with our heads and also our hearts and our spirits for the well-being of the people of the town of Valdese. Encourage the people who have been elected and be with those who are sitting in the room. Allow us to find a space that we can all maybe agree to disagree, but remember that we're all together in a service to you. It's all these things that we ask in your name, which we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, council. Under item 4 for tonight's agenda, new business, we'll look at the December 2nd proposed or draft agenda, if you will. And the first thing on there is under 7, new business, a public hearing for Valdese Weavers Mill housing bonds. And I think we have someone presenting tonight. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Get this pulled up. We, again, appreciate your time and consideration here and listening to our story. And once again, we'll go over just the nuts and bolts here. That going to be 60 new units over there, 43 one-bedrooms, and these rent units, these rent numbers include water, sewer, parking. And then we get down to the income levels. So single, one bedroom, single person household, 32,820. That can be, anywhere from $15 to $20 an hour. That could be factory workers, it could be hospital workers. And really want to emphasize seniors on a fixed income. As everybody knows, the Social Security income is not always enough to make ends meet. Single parent households is another good example. So what we're here to really talk about, my company was approached by a charitable foundation. Y'all are probably familiar with Dogwood Health Trust because of our experience in nonprofit redevelopment and affordable housing. So we saw the opportunity to work outside of our region, and our board voted to allow us to do that. And it's been a long road, especially with environmental. We got entered into the state's brownfields project. So it's about environmental cleanup just to mainly ensure the health and safety of residents and everyone for the future of the project. So we've already invested over $2.5 million to be where we are today, and we've actually still got folks working in there right now, taking out the old bricks because it's a historic, we're on the National Historic Register. So all those old arched windows will be restored, and it's going to look really fantastic. And again, if it was one county over, our housing authority would issue these bonds, and that's a pretty typical situation. And we had that agreement with the previous Valdese Housing Authority, which you all know has changed hands into the COG and some other different things. So how we can help you, we're able, looking at the budget, we can offer you the full maximum amount of the fee, which is 1.5% of the bonds. So right now, we're projecting 11 million is what the bond, and it's gonna be a little bit north of that, so upwards of 165,000 as an issuance fee. Then all new utility accounts, and make it look good right in the heart of your downtown. So, and most importantly, the need for housing, especially after this storm, is more prevalent than ever. And we are more shovel-ready than ever to get these new units into service. And this is one of our developments in Jefferson that was historic adaptive reuse. It was an old hospital. But we own the projects for a very long time, 20 plus years. Usually it's more like 30 and 40. So we're in it to be good citizens, good neighbors, and we want it to look good at last and be a healthy, safe place for families and people to live. And this is another picture of that project there, and it's just, it stays rented up all the time. Our vacancies is really not a problem, and the seniors that live there really are happy to have such a nice, fantastic spot to live. So I'll turn it over to Kristen to explain a little more of the financing situation, if y'all have any other questions for me.
Council, questions? Okay.
I'll have a couple, but I'll start with one. You said that this is outside your normal region, and I think your normal region is more up in the mountains.
Yeah, we're Allegheny down through Yancey.
Right, and that was the area that was basically really devastated by Hurricane Helene. So I guess just a general question I have is, why did you go out of your region? Why are you so anxious to go out of your region into Valdese? We didn't have too much hurricane damage here. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we've got other development projects in our region for sure, but again, we purchased the property in 2001, so we would have liked to have already been completed by now, but there's been some hurdles with, like, especially the environmental. So it's been in the works, and that was another part of the story we wanted to make sure you folks understand is we've been working on this for over 5 years, really.
And you judge that the need in Valdese is greater than the need in your regular region?
No, there's been market studies done for this specific area that we can share with you, but mainly it was our relationship with that trust and our reputation of developing affordable housing that we're able to do, and so we're really here to help and help each other.
And you said that this would would serve our community. Will these units be limited to Valdese residents?
That is not within fair housing law.
So where will these people come from?
I would have to say that they're probably already here.
I'm sorry?
I'd say that they're already here. There's folks that work at all these factories, the hospital, all the restaurants, all the grocery stores.
Will it come from McDowell County, maybe?
I imagine they come from anywhere.
Yeah,
From anywhere. So it's not a particular advantage to the Valdese community then to have this here.
I mean, I think everywhere needs affordable housing, and we can.
Did you do a market? Did you do a market study that indicated that there is a large need for subsidized housing of people in Valdese?
Yes, absolutely. And I think we may have shared it with your town attorney, and we'll be glad to share that information. And that's done by third-party professionals. That's all they do.
So our need is greater than the need in other parts of western North Carolina. It's not really which is more, but
we can definitely prove.
Maybe I can help with that. From
that-
what I've seen from the League of Municipalities and COG, the need for housing is pretty much statewide
Oh, yeah,
for us.
yeah.
North Carolina has a really bad housing shortage.
We do, and we actually, in the western part of the state, and especially in rural areas, that we get not quite as much as attention as metro and the rest of the state. So we're lucky that we're able to still hold on to these bonds, because this was a 2021 bond allocation, and we're lucky that the State Finance Agency is still recognizing our work and rolling those over to 2025 to help out with everyone.
Any other council members have questions?
Don't we have a senior apartment, complex being built in Valdese as well? That's across from the, used to be Hardee's. It's near the elementary school.
We do.
Yeah.
They're supposed to start grading
Yeah,
sometime.
for
the
senior
first of the
citizen.
year.
That's what I wanted, that's what I wanted.
Place?
Yeah, Trom Place, yes. And how many units is that gonna be, the Trom Place?
Somewhere around 60.
60, okay. And it's all, you, what was it, 50 or 55?
and older.
55 and older,
Isn't
Yeah.
that yours as well?
No, not at
Oh,
all.
okay.
Yeah, so
and
ours
older, okay.
is
60
strictly
units.
income,
Okay,
income qualified tenants. And again, with it being only 2-bedroom maximum, that, you're only gonna be, the max is gonna be a three-person household, really. But a 3-person household could earn up to 42,180.
so you're saying that if you are a family and have a mother and 3 children, you would not be able to come into this complex?
Maybe, yeah, I mean, it's a 2-bedroom unit, there's not any more than 2 bedrooms.
So is there a limit on how many people can go into?
I mean, you could potentially have, yes, a single parent and 3 children.
Okay, I
Because,
mean,
yeah,
what if
you're
the,
allowed to share
Mhm.
bedrooms with children of certain ages. I guess once they're of a certain age and different genders, then some of those rules change.
Okay, so is there a limit, like, can you have 7 people in the,
No,
no,
no.
okay,
It's certainly not more than 2 per bedroom.
2 per bedroom. So 4 people in the 2-bedroom units,
Yeah, and also,
I mean-
again,
4 people total.
the property management group
Mhm.
that we work with and that would be the property manager for this product does extensive background and credit checking, and they're the on-the-ground enforcement of making sure those rules are followed and that all the verifications are there.
And I guess one of the things that I had thought is that our young teachers, our young police, and our young fire could come into these apartments, but they're not going to be able to because of the income level is too low. And that was, something that I was hoping, because those folks, certainly we need a place that those folks can come and live. And that was what I was hoping that would be available.
Yeah, so it's understandable, but again, the rules for the low-income tax credits, low-income housing tax credits are spelled out by the IRS and by the federal government. And that's the very highly competitive process that we were awarded.
Mhm.
So that's the rules that, and the populations that we have to follow.
And I would ask, Mr. Weichel, is this pretty much the same rules that Pine Crossing Apartments that opened last year has?
I believe so. I'm not totally familiar with that project, but it is income-based levels. I don't know if it's 60% or what the percentage is, but yeah,
It's pretty much the same thing.
yeah.
I know that our police and our fire and teachers could not get into those apartments either. Okay, I was just asking, yeah.
Anyone else?
Councilman Hall, do you have any questions? I'm gonna have a couple more, I think. The council, concluded that it would be, we did a little research into what this low-income housing financing and how that works, and it's our understanding that, somewhere between 20% of the units and 100% of the units have to be designated as low-income housing. And I think what you're proposing is 100% of these units will be low-income housing. And I believe we formally asked if you could flip that and make 80% of these units market rate so that workers and young people, young professional people who want to live in Valdese, commute to Asheville or Charlotte or wherever, could live in those. But you have refused to do that for some reason?
No, it's not a refusal to do that. It's
So you will do it?
no. The budget can't handle that.
I'm sorry, why can't the budget handle that?
Because we only get the tax credit for a low-income unit, and we're talking about an $18 million project. So we need and you know, it could go over by 2 years when it goes into service, and so if we don't, we have to have all of those to make the cash flow.
Who gets the
in
tax
budget.
credit?
The investors.
And who are the investors?
They're a third party through a syndicator.
They're who?
Third party investors through a statewide syndicator.
Now, how much tax credit will they get on this $18 million project?
It varies because we've got 3 different sets. So there's a North Carolina mill set of credits. There's a federal historic credits, and then there's a low-income housing tax credits.
So if you add all those up, how much tax credit will that be?
Like I said at the beginning, that's projecting at over $11 million.
$11 million tax credit
Yes, sir.
on this $18 million project.
Yes, sir.
So these financial institutions will put up $18 million if they happen to owe the federal government $11 million of taxes. They'll be wiped out.
I don't make the rules. This is how the federal government has decided to invite private investment into affordable housing. That's what low-income tax
So
credits
we're gonna,
are.
Valdese is gonna host an $18 million project. Financial institutions are gonna earn $11 million in tax credit. That's
That's-
like US tax dollars, $11 million coming to these
Well,
companies.
it's private investment instead of tax dollars. That was how it was
I
created.
thought you said it was tax credit.
It's a tax credit.
Purchase the tax credit.
They purchase the tax credits.
So they pay like
Yeah.
90 cents on the dollar, so they don't.
I'm sorry, I don't know who's answering the question.
Sorry. So the way the tax credit works is the investor, so let me back up. By financing at least 50% of the cost of the project with tax exempt bonds, you automatically earn the right to receive a 4% tax credit. That's this kind of bonds, 4% housing bonds. That credit is calculated at 4% of the project basis per year over 15 years. The developer doesn't use those tax credits to their advantage. What they do is they sell those tax credits to an investor. So the investor does have to buy them. They're not getting the full value. They usually purchase it for something between 85 to 90 cents on the dollar. So for $1 of tax credits, they're paying 85 to 90 cents, and that money is used to finance a portion of the cost of the project. So the developer receives that investment, uses it to pay for the project.
And how would this picture change now if half of the units were market rate instead of all low-income housing?
They would not be eligible for the tax credits on any of the non-affordable units. You only receive that 4% tax credit on the units that are set aside for the affordable income
So
limits.
they only get $5.5 million of tax credits.
So we'd have to come up with
So they'd have to
another,
make up the
we'd have-
rest.
if we financed with a bank another $6 million, then we couldn't afford to have these rents this low.
So this project is gonna cost $18 million for 60 units. That makes those units, Bo, you're faster at this stuff than I am. 60 units into $18 million, that's about $600,000 a unit?
No, it's 230, something like
How much?
230.
230 times 60?
300.
I'm a little better.
300, okay.
Yeah, 300,000.
300,000.
300 times 60, 300,000. So those little one-bedroom and two-bedroom apartments are gonna average $300,000 apiece. And this organization, the Northwest Housing Enterprise, will be able to pull this off?
Yes, sir. I mean, again, we've got 3 or 4 of the historic that we've done, and then we have 3 or 4 other new construction builds that were done in the same process, using
And
the same.
who has been in charge of these projects?
We own and operate all of them.
I'm
And
sorry?
We own and operate all of them, and we're a nonprofit affiliated with our housing authority.
We being who now?
Northwestern Housing Enterprises. It's a nonprofit development company,
Okay.
and we are sister partner of our regional housing authority. And that was started in the late 80s when LIHTC, when HUD quit building public housing. This is what the next generation after public housing became from HUD.
Okay, well, I hope all of our citizens are watching, and I hope some of them turn up at the hearing next week. So this bond is now, we thought we were gonna be asked to issue a $10 million bond, but it's not gonna be an $11 million bond. Is that right? Is that what I heard tonight? Okay.
Yes.
$11 million bond, and this $18 million property is gonna generate, if it were a commercial property, it would generate property taxes of 41.5 cents a hundred. Well, how much property taxes would an $18 million commercial condo or apartment project generate? Maybe 30-some thousand?
75,000.
How much?
75.
75,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for $165,000 up front, we can issue this bond and we'll forego $75,000 a year property taxes. Plus, the county of Burke will also be giving up even more because the Burke County tax rate is even higher. I don't know, that's big finance, way bigger finance than I've ever been involved in, but it sure sounds sweet from a standpoint of somebody getting, making money off of federal dollars, but, I guess we'll have to see how the hearing
Oh,
goes.
it's private investment, and that's what makes those rents low. If it was market rate, the rents would be twice they'd be twice the amount.
Council, you have anything else?
And I was gonna go through some slides, just, excuse me, as a reminder of how the bonds work. Excuse me. So again, to use this financing, you know, under federal rules, the tax exempt bonds have to be issued by a governmental entity, so that is why the town's involvement is needed. The town has that ability under state law to issue these types of bonds. You are merely acting as a conduit issuer in the sense that this in no way involves the town putting up the money. You are not loaning 18 or $11 million. So these bonds are not a debt of the town. They're not a pledge of the town's faith and credit, or for that matter, a debt or a pledge of the faith and credit of any governmental entity in the state. They do not affect your debt ratios or your legal debt limits, so it doesn't impact the amount that the town is able to borrow for its own projects. The town has no financial responsibility for the bonds. The borrower is solely responsible for their repayment. As was already mentioned, the developer has agreed to pay the town an issuance fee of 1.5% of the bond amount, and has also agreed to a pilot of payment in lieu of taxes in recognition of the fact that, as was pointed out by Councilman Harvey, that the property would not typically be required to pay any property taxes, but the developer has agreed to make this payment in lieu of taxes. The developer is also responsible for paying all costs of the town in connection with doing the bond issuance, including our fee as bond counsel to the town for the bonds, and your town attorney's fees and any other costs that you have related to the transaction. We've already discussed the income set aside, and that this project would be 100% affordable. Just to give you a picture of what these bonds will look like in this particular instance, these bonds will be sold in the public market. These are going to be short-term cash collateralized bonds that will have a term of 2 to 3 years. So the bonds will only be outstanding essentially during the construction of the project. Once the project is completed and placed in service, the permanent financing comes in the form of a USDA rural development loan. While the bonds are outstanding, they are secured with cash and investments. So at all times, a bond trustee is holding sufficient funds to pay all principal and interest on the bonds until their repayment dates. So very low risk in terms of any potential default because the bonds are secured with cash. Other financing from the project, since again the bonds are only financing slightly over 50%, are the low-income housing tax credits that we discussed, a grant from the Dogwood Health Trust, and a sponsor loan coming from Northwestern Regional. Hoping to get this transaction closed in 2025 if the town is on board to move forward. And so that would be our targeted closing date. In terms of the steps required, the developer has already applied for and received their bond volume cap and the approval for the low-income housing tax credits. That occurred back in 2021. Since gone back and requested the increase to the higher amount of the bonds. The first step up for the town council would be to adopt an inducement resolution, which would indicate your willingness to be the issuer for these bonds, assuming all the approvals are obtained and we're ready, get ready to close. As you guys are aware, we started this process in 2021 with the Housing Authority, so they had previously adopted the inducement resolution, but now with the change in the structure of the Housing Authority and the COG, we're coming to the town to ask you to be the issuer. For this type of tax exempt bonds, the federal tax code requires a public hearing, so I believe the town is considering doing that at the December 2nd meeting. That's also called a TEFRA hearing. TEFRA is the set of federal regulations that contain this requirement. you might remember we previously did a public hearing, but it was in 2022 with the Housing Authority, but we came to the Town Council for just the TEFRA approval. Here you would be doing the public hearing during the council meeting as well. And then a little bit closer to closing, we would come back to the town for one final approval. At that point, giving your final sign off on the issuance of the bonds and authorizing your town officers to sign the documents needed for the closing. You would then sign the documents at the closing, and going forward, the town would receive reports at least annually about the status of the project and its compliance with the bond requirements. Any questions about the tax exempt bonds or the town's role in the process?
Council?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, unless there's any objections, we'll move this item A to the December agenda, please. Okay, item B, end of year committee reports. Any discussion on that?
I
Yeah.
saw that, Mr. Mayor, that those could be written reports, so do they have to be presented to the council, or can they just be written reports turned in to the council?
Whatever they choose, I don't have a preference.
Well, the efficiency task force, their last minutes were read by Mr. Perrow on July the 24th. So, and they're also in the book that Ms. Lael has.
So that will serve as our final report from that committee?
I would accept that as a final
Okay.
report.
Okay,
Okay,
that works?
okay.
So, under item B, they can be written or they can present to council. We'll move that to the December agenda and approach that then.
And also just add the efficiency task force to that, if you will, be Roman numeral 4.
Since they've already presented, we won't need to,
Well, I wouldn't, I
yeah,
don't think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
since they've already presented, we don't need to do it
All
again.
right, okay.
Okay, item C, resolution adopting the 2025 town council meeting calendar. I'm sure we'll move that to the December agenda.
I'm gonna bring it up
You
on the
want to
screen.
comment on that?
Okay. There, yeah, we get the whole thing on there. Okay. So the, on the left side column is the regular meetings. Let me bring this up a little bit. Regular monthly meetings are on the left side column, along with some special meetings such for budget purposes. And then on the right side is the pre-agenda meetings that would coincide with the regular meetings on the left side. That's kind of how this is laid out. So staff has gone through this to make sure that there's no meetings that collide with the holiday week or things like that. There's no conflict. So this is what the draft looks like, and now council can kind of go through it and make sure this is what everybody wants.
Questions, council?
Yes, I didn't look for it and see any problems with holidays, but except at two ends of that calendar, at the January 6th meeting, that's a regular meeting. That's really close to the first of the year. It would seem to me that if we could bump that one a week, have that meeting on January 13, then we could have the preliminary agenda review meeting on January 6th. I think that would let everybody recover from the holidays, back to their travel, whatever they're doing, get in, have a week of getting into things, and then have the preliminary agenda review meeting on January 6th, and the regular council meeting then on the 13th.
I like that, if that requires us to have no more meetings in December except for the December 2nd meeting.
So we're saying that January 6th would become the preliminary meeting?
Yes, and the
And then-
13th, the regular meeting.
Okay.
Now, picking up on that, jumping to the other end of the calendar, we have December 15 down there as a review of the January 2026 agenda. I think that January 2026 agenda belongs to the next council. I don't think this council needs to needs to set a date for that. And maybe the next council will want to not meet in December as well.
Okay,
I agree with that.
so do we want to remove that from this
Yes.
calendar? Okay.
And then I have a couple big ones. This 2025 calendar year, is an election year, just like 2023 was. Now, what happened in 2023 was we had 3 new council members elected, and then we were kind of lost sheep for a while. The council scheduled a special meeting on November 20th and bid the outgoing council members adieu at that meeting. And then when we were sworn in on December 4th, there was not a council, there was not a quorum. So until we got sworn in and we were seated, and then we made a quorum. But then we felt it necessary to schedule another special meeting the middle of December so that we could get a calendar adopted with preliminary agenda meetings, which was done, and that's how we ended up with this year's calendar. And then we also had a proposal for a strategic planning. We had a strategic planning proposal from the Western Piedmont Council of Governments that was presented in December so that we could get grassroots strategic planning underway in 2024. So what I'm suggesting is that I put out some dates last week hoping we'd get some exchanges going on, but we didn't. But I think we don't need to resolve it here in this meeting, but if other people would weigh in, I think we ought to do something different with the November and December meetings. For one thing, it's a little strange for the council to be meeting the night before the election takes place. We're going to have 4 seats up here on the ballot, and those 4 candidates ought to be out campaigning on Monday, November 3rd, not coming into a council meeting. And it's not good timing. So I think we need to move away from that November 3rd council meeting, get away from election eve, and then let's think about getting the 4 new council members sworn in as soon as we can. Let's set up a preliminary agenda meeting so they can get engaged pretty quickly and get into their work in December. So again, I threw out some specific dates, but I don't want to do that now. I think we can deal with that between now and the December 2nd meeting.
As far as the swearing in, is that set? Maybe our attorney can tell us. Is that something that the council decides, or is that something set? I think it's set, isn't it?
You mean set as far as the date?
The day, yeah, that it has to be like
I think it's the next meeting following their election.
the next
Or-
meeting.
No, it can be called, it can be a special meeting. Or
Well,
it says
it's
one.
the next meeting following the election,
Yeah,
whether it's special
so
or regular.
it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be the next month, it can be the next meeting.
that's correct.
But
Okay.
But the election has to be certified by the Burke County Board of Elections. That has to be done, so that's a factor in there. I mean, you can't swear them in the next day. So.
It had always been done in December. that doesn't mean it has to, but that's what all the other boards do in our county.
Yeah.
So,
Anybody else?
Okay.
I guess we'll add that to the December 2nd agenda.
We'll make the changes to those dates and then
Okay.
we'll revisit, I guess.
Okay. Item D, council appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. I think we've seen where we have the current openings are on the planning board, the Parks and Rec Commission, and the Facilities Review Committee.
Yeah, we need one for the Facilities Review Committee, we need 5 for the Efficiency Task Force.
I've reached out to all the former members of the Efficiency Task Force. I've heard from one that they would serve again, and hopefully all the ones that were on there will serve again this year. So it may be January before I get that to you all, but.
Okay. Interested parties or citizens are encouraged to apply by submitting their applications to the town clerk, and applications can be accessed on the town's website. Any further on that item, council? If not, we'll add that to the December 2nd agenda. Okay, item E, Ward 2 vacancy. It's my understanding currently we have no applications for that Ward 2 seat.
Yeah, let's hope that we do. Let's all encourage people to consider applying. Ideally, it's a great opportunity to learn a lot about serving in an elected office just for a year. This is just a one-year term that the application would be for. The Ward 2 representative will be another, it will be on the ballot next year for a 4-term period. 4-year term, I'm sorry.
but I do want to emphasize that even if we discuss it, we cannot appoint anybody until January 6th, because that is what our motion said, that we would accept applications until January the 6th.
Is there any need to have that on the December 2nd agenda?
That was my question.
Yeah, I don't see a need.
I think we need to keep it there just so we can keep abreast of how many people have applied.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, item E will be added to the December 2nd agenda. Okay, item F, citizens survey on budget priorities.
I suggested that we add that item. That would involve, if the council considers it and approves it, it would involve the staff getting proposals to undertake a survey of citizens to get their input on setting budget priorities for next year.
Did we not do that? Was that not part of the strategic plan that we had done?
That's what I felt like we did that with the strategic plan, and I would certainly like to see what the cost of that would be, because we paid out money to do a strategic plan in January and February of this year, and so to do another survey, is that needed at this time?
I don't think we need to redo that whole planning process, but we used that input from January and February for the current year budget process, I think we implied to citizens throughout that we would be doing this annually and getting citizens' input each year in our budgeting priorities.
I was not under that understanding.
No. What concerns me most is we've not really accomplished anything
Yeah.
on the strategic plan that was done at the first
Yeah.
of the year.
Until we accomplish those things in our budget, then why is there a need to look at more things until we accomplish the law enforcement priorities, the pool was a priority, other things that I've got my strategic plan right here, and it tells us exactly what the priorities are.
Well, I don't quite understand what would we be given, what we're gonna give information to for the citizens for this. It's what I would, that we already hadn't given them. I mean, what information would we be giving citizens that we hadn't already given them? I mean, is there any?
This suggestion is that we undertake a survey of citizens, asking them about budget priorities and get their input on it. It's not giving them information, it's asking them what the current priorities are.
But we did that in this document.
Right,
We
the last
asked
one we
them, and they came to meetings, and they did surveys for us, and they told us what they wanted us to do. We have yet to accomplish anything that they told us: hiring a town manager, fixing our public safety issues, fixing the pool, the roads. There are things in here, we haven't done them yet. So until we do them, why would we ask them again until we get something accomplished? That's just my thoughts.
Okay, anybody else?
I think that could be done in January, February, March, see where we are on that.
It's on the agenda, let's resolve it in December, whether we're gonna do it or not. I think it would be good to do, but if we don't wanna do it, and if we don't get a second and we don't get 3 votes, we won't be doing it, but, I'm all for getting information. I mean, I've never turned away information, to help make a decision, so that's all this is proposing.
Okay, item F to the December agenda, please. Thank you, ma'am. Item G, adoption of design build establishment of criteria. Mr. Weichel, sir.
Hold on a second. Okay, so just a reminder, this document here is a requirement to adopt when you're doing the design build method for construction projects. So this kind of gets adopted just before the RFQ would get adopted. It just outlines, basically, it's an establishment of criteria why the town wants to use design build over the traditional design bid build method that's been used for ages and ages. So this is a newer, design build is a newer construction method. And so when the state approved towns and counties to use this method, they had to do a written criteria. So this is the criteria. We looked at one of these before when we were just going to do the renovations project, but then the motion was made to change it to a combo, look at a combo building and a renovation project. So the suggestions that were made at the last one that we did, I incorporated those into this. So those changes are reflected in this document already.
Okay.
So I think we voted last month that you will see how much it's gonna cost to renovate the Mitchell building, and then also see how much it's gonna cost to build police and fire together. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
Is
that is
that what's
correct.
in here?
No,
Yes.
no, this is just simply the statement to allow us to use that method. So that's it's just a tool to get us to that point, just a statute that we're following. The RFQ that we'll look at next is where
Okay,
we'll get to that, yeah.
okay,
So this is just the vehicle to get there.
okay.
That can go under consent, can it not?
Yeah, it can.
Okay. Council, if it's good with you, we'll put that on the consent agenda.
Yes.
I might pull it off, but you can put it on there. if you want.
And I could send this out to council sooner than the agenda packet goes out, so y'all have time to review it, if that helps. Okay.
Okay, item H.
Okay, item H, the actual RFQ. Yeah, this is gonna be the actual RFQ. So it's the RFQ for design build services for a police facility, cost comparison and construction. So the way it's written is a two-phase contract. And we'll get right to the scope here. All right, so it's a two-phase design build service utilizing DBIA 520 and then a 525 contract. We've heard of AIA, but DBIA is their term for these standard contracts. Phase one would consist of a schematic design level, 30% schematic design, comparing the cost to either renovating the existing 215 Main Street building versus the combo building over here at the Marcel lot that we have.
Yeah.
So this will give us a 30% project scope, budgetary numbers that we can go by. And that, once we have those numbers, we can transition into a phase two, because we'll have the numbers for the renovations, then we'll have the numbers for the combo building. Phase two would be, there's two parts to phase two. The first part would be the design. So once council decides, okay, we want to go with the renovation, or no, we want to go with the combo building, then they'll proceed. They've already got 30% of the design done. They'll proceed further with that design work to establish what they call GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price. Going through schematic design, which will already be done in phase one, then design development, construction documents, doing more geotechnical engineering, things like that. Once they get through that design work, remember this is the same contractor, so this is under design build. They go into the construction work, so their contract in phase two will cover the construction management, closeout activities, things like that. So it's a two-phase work. So we'll actually have to come to council twice for contracts. Phase one, we'll enter a contract with them, and then once we're ready to move on to phase two, we'll enter a second contract with them.
Yeah, I've heard 30% twice. What does that 30% mean?
So 30% is a schematic design. So how in depth of a budgetary number, how much design do we want to work? So you got 0 to 100% on design work.
Okay.
So 30% is a good mark that they'll know, okay, this is what it's going to, pretty much the cost is going to be.
Okay.
That gets them past the hurdles that they need to get through to see that 30%. So they call it that the schematic design phase. So it's always the first one. Yeah.
Do you have an estimate of what the total length of time would be from when we might be ready to start phase two and then the construction process?
So here's the estimated project schedule without putting the RFQ. So if council adopts this document at December 2nd meeting, we'll go ahead and advertise. Going into the holiday season, we're kind of limits our time. So we want to give contractors enough time to respond. We want to give much participation as possible. So the electronic qualification statement, which is just a PDF that they'll send us, will be due by January 27th. And then hard copies, they gotta give, I think I have 5 or 6 hard copies in here, bound hard copies, will be due on January 31st. And then the review of these statements would take place in February, early February. And there would be a committee that would be reviewing these that council would set out. Interview the final selections between the end of February. Then you got to notify the firm that was picked out of those interviews. Usually interview, hopefully we have enough to interview at least 3 firms. Then you go into a contract negotiation with them for phase 1. So that does take a little bit of time because attorneys got to go back and forth. We got to send it to Mr. Swanson. He's got to send it back to their attorney, get things tidied up on that end. And then hopefully the goal will be by the April 7th meeting to adopt that phase 1 contract with them. So that's the.
Are you gonna go on with the rest of this schedule? How long do you think phase 1 would take, and then?
That I don't know. I would say it would probably take, if they're designing a combination building, and then if they're also looking at renovations, you're probably figuring at least 2 months for each of those projects to go into schematic design work. So you're probably looking at 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months?
To do phase 1.
And then we would go through a process of negotiating for the phase 2 contract. That might be another 2 or 3 months.
Well, once council knows which direction, I think the longer part will be what direction does council want to go. Once we have those budgetary numbers in, I think once we can decide something, then we can get a phase 2 contract going pretty quickly, because you're not going through the selection process again. You've already got your contractor ready to go. You just got to draft the contract. So.
And how long do you think the construction would take then for, in either case?
I'll let the contractor answer that one.
Okay, that brings me now to really 2 suggestions on this RFQ.
Okay.
Coming into the last meeting, the October meeting, not the last meeting, the October meeting, we had 6 people with quite a bit of knowledge about construction and facilities, brought a proposal to the council to renovate the Mitchell building within 6 months and at a total cost, a maximum cost of $1 million. The council, in its wisdom, rejected that, pushed that up to $1.75 million without consideration of a lot of contingencies. And then following that, coming into our last meeting, I know you had talked with each council member, and it was your recommendation that we go with an RFQ for a combined building on Massell Avenue. And in fact, I think I was the last one you called, and you said you had a consensus the council wanted to go that direction. But then at the last meeting, we kicked that back and threw the Mitchell building back in there again. The Mitchell building, we've already spent $24,000 coming up with a whole spreadsheet of numbers on that, which add up to around $3 million. So now we get to the point. I've got citizens coming to me saying, you know, this is going to go on for a couple more years before these permanent public safety buildings are ready for our police department or fire department. What would it cost to shore up our existing building so they can continue operating out of there for those next 2 years? So that's the one suggestion I have. I'd like the council to consider. Let's add that to phase 1. Have the general contractor take a look and see what's the least expensive way we could shore up the existing building so it will be safe for our police and fire department for the next 2 years until we get the new ones ready. Telly and Smith looked at that, but Telly and Smith does not have a structural engineer on their staff, and I don't think they brought one in for that recommendation. They recommended that the police and fire department be relocated out of that existing facility within 30 days. When they recommended that, the town had no alternative but to comply. Otherwise, we were uncovered to untold liability. But I think that would not be a very big thing to add to that phase one. The second thing that I'm hearing, and the thing I've heard the most, is the police department's in the town hall now. Why don't we add on to it and make the permanent police department in the town hall? So that's another possible addition to phase one. Let's have the general contractor give us an estimate for what it would cost to add on to this building for whatever storage rooms we need, for whatever sally port we need. And let's then have three major alternatives with good solid numbers: the Mitchell Building, the Town Hall, the combination building on Massillon Avenue. So that's my suggestion to the council members, that we expand phase one to include two more things. Let's just find out what it would cost to shore up that existing building, and let's find out what it would cost to modify this so that the police department could be on the west end of this building.
Council, I have a question, sir. The process that adopted the presented RFQ and so forth was adopted by council. What will it take for Mr. Harvey to change that? We adopted doing the Mitchell building and the combination building. That was the motion that was adopted.
Hey, quite honestly, I would have to hear the motion. I don't know that we have that handy. If what we're trying to do is inconsistent with the motion, there could always be a new motion at the meeting to amend or modify that action that could be taken under consideration by council.
Okay, that answers my question. Is that what you wish to do, Councilman Harvey?
That's my desire at this point, yes.
So if there's a motion at the next meeting to do that, this one will be presented, and there's a motion, then we'll have to redo it to the January meeting for adoption.
Another delay.
Okay.
So Bo, I haven't reviewed your design criteria. Would that modify your criteria as well?
Slightly. I just have to change some of the wording, but yeah, I had to change a lot of the wording on this RFQ mainly.
So that would need to be, that if there is such a motion, it would need to be taken up before design criteria is considered.
It would have to be with both documents, yes.
It would be before G. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so G and H, G has been moved to consent, H will be moved to the December 2nd agenda, please. Is that right, Bo?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I think in anticipation of that motion, we might as well not put G on consent. You might as well
Okay.
leave G and H both.
Okay, just-
Yeah, G and H should both stay on the new business.
Okay,
Sorry, I was looking ahead to the next item.
that's okay, you're good. Okay, any further on H? Item I, pool structure bids and capital campaign discussion.
Okay, so I'm gonna present the numbers, and then Scott's gonna come up here from the Parks and Rec Commission and talk about the capital campaign.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So just a quick history about this project. The pool structure was, original bid opening day was October 28th. We had one contractor that was there to submit a bid. State law requires at least 3 bids on the first bid opening for any construction projects greater than $500,000. So obviously we did not meet that. The project was re-advertised for November 14th. At November 14th, again, we just had one contractor show up, the same contractor. But there's no minimum rule here to have to re-advertise it. We did have a few interested GCs, but they dropped out due to a workload that they've got, and they also had limited estimators on staff at the time. So we thought we were going to get at least one more, but unfortunately they had to drop out. They got a lot of work going on, especially with out west. So with that one bid, it was Hout Contracting is the bid, $1,793,930 is the bid price. And I did get word back from the architect today. They've gone through the bid tab and made sure everything was in line. So we're all good on that number. It's been certified. Looking at the financial aspect of it, so remember we got that $500,000 grant from the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund for accessible parks. So $377,000 of that can be used towards a pole structure. $123 of it has to be used for ADA type work. So we pulled that $123 out, gives us $377 to put towards this project. In addition to the total grant of $500,000, there's a 20% match, which we do have a private donor matching that for us. So that's $100,000. And then we've got a capital campaign, which is going to be talked about in a second, for $300,000. So if you factor all those things in, the out-of-pocket expense for the contract for this pole structure would be just a little over $1 million. The 123 at the bottom you see there would cover the ADA work that's required by the grant. So we wouldn't owe any balance on that. So town out-of-pocket expense would be $1,016,000. Are there any questions on that before he comes up here?
That 123 grant, is that part of the, oh, I see, okay, you subtracted that from the 500 up above, so you got 370.
Yeah,
Okay.
it goes along with 377. Yeah.
So actually, if you add that 123 to the 1793, the total amount of the project is a little over 1.9 million. And how much have we paid the architect so far, the design architect?
I think it was like 108,000.
So this project is over $2 million then?
Yes, sir.
Totally.
Yes, sir. Okay. Any more questions? Okay.
Good evening, members of the council. After several discussions, we have met a couple of times since the last time I have presented it in front of you, we being the Parks and Recreation Commission. After several discussions, we feel that it's appropriate that we ask for your approval to initiate a capital campaign based on the conversations that we've had internally without the members of the board. We think, or members of the commission, we feel that we could potentially, or our goal would be $300,000 to be raised through private donation and fundraising activities over the course of a 12-month time period, beginning this December. And so I come to you today to ask for your approval to initiate that project.
I'm sorry, Scott, I couldn't hear you very well, but when did you think you would have this $300,000?
12 months
12
from
months.
now, yes. 12 months from this
And
upcoming December.
When are
So
you
that
going
would
to
be
launch it?
this December.
I'm sorry?
This December.
December.
In December?
Yes.
Next
yeah,
month?
December. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll throw out one thought. I'm getting ready to pay my property taxes to Burke County, and I haven't done the calculation yet, but I know I'm going to save 20% on my Valdese property taxes. So if you launch this fund drive, I'll contribute that 20% to it. And, you know, maybe that's something that you could use to help promote other people to, as they pay their property taxes this
yeah.
December, that they might consider helping you with the pool.
Yeah, certainly, I appreciate that recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, do we need to make a motion for them to go ahead and do their fund
We'll do
campaign?
that December 2nd.
Okay.
We'll do that then. Any questions for Scott?
How many people use that pool in the wintertime?
Shoot, I don't have a hard number based on, I know that I don't personally, so I wouldn't be able to make an educated guess. But I would assume that it is pretty heavily used based on my experience at birthday parties and various swim team events. One thing that I have noticed, and once again, this is an unofficial analysis, but it seems to be universally desired amongst Valdese residents that we have a pool that operates year-round. I really, at this point, I've never met somebody who felt we would be better served by having a seasonal pool. And so I feel, and maybe the strategic plan that you referenced earlier may reflect that information as well, that this priority, it appears to be a high priority amongst the citizens of Valdese. Once again, I don't have official statistics, just as unofficial man on the street, straw pool.
Does our school system still use it for swim teams?
Yes. Not currently, they're not currently using it, but the plan would be for them to use it once
That would
we
be
have
which
structure in
schools?
place. I believe it's Drawn and East Burke. Is there a third? Just the two of those.
That's, one of the things that some people have asked me is, we know these high schools have multi-million-dollar athletic facilities, gymnasiums and stadiums and athletic fields. And maybe this is an assignment that somebody ought to give to our interim manager, but has anybody sat down with the school superintendent or the Board of Education? The Burke County Public Schools has a budget somewhere around $20 million. And people are suggesting to me that, if we're providing a varsity athletic facility, maybe Burke County Public Schools could help with the capital investment of it. So I just wonder, is that something that we're pursuing, or
That is something that I believe we are currently pursuing. We've reached out to Burke County Public Schools, to Superintendent Mike Swan, we know what the annual fee is for the YMCA and the former Pfeiffer Center. We think that that we can, well, for lack of a better term, that we can come in lower than that. And we had been traditionally, and so we are reaching out to them to see if they would be interested in a deal where they would front perhaps 10 years up front in advance to assist with the construction cost of this event, of this structure.
That's a good idea.
Well, thank you, but I didn't come up with it. So. But yes, any dollar would help, and so we're waiting on their response.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Scott. We'll add that to the December 2nd agenda, man. Okay, item J, Mr. Wackler. North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund Accessible Parks Project Agreement.
Okay, so this kind of goes along with the pool structure bid. If the bid is accepted, council wants to move forward. This is an agreement. Remember, we were awarded that $500,000 grant, but we actually got to accept the grant. And we have, I think December 6th is our drop dead date to accept that grant. One thing about this grant to note is that it is valid for 3 years once we accept it. So we have 3 years to use those funds all the way through completion. It is a reimbursement grant, so once we spend it, we have to ask for reimbursement back. We don't get it all up front.
Can you speak to us about the ADA part of that grant? I think that's very important to remind the council about that part of the grant.
Yeah, in order to receive the grant, be eligible for it, we had to show that there was an ADA need. And so there's going to be some ramps, I think at the front of the building for ADA access. Currently, right now, the only ADA access is in the back of the building. So this will give more access for ADA accessibility at the main part of the building. So, and as part of the grant, that's why we took that 123 out, because that's how much it'll cost to do that work. So the rest of the grant can be used towards the structure itself.
Okay, anybody else? We'll add item J to the December 2nd agenda. Item K, agreement for engineering and design services, Whole Creek Stream Restoration and Side Path Trail. Mr. White.
All right. So this has been an ongoing project, and I'll just give you a quick reminder about it. So this is the stream restoration along Hoyle Creek. The state gave us $2.2 million for this project, and we have to go through the RFQ process, which we have done. We did that process. We had 8 submittals. We interviewed 3 of those firms, and the firm that was selected as the most qualified for this is McGill Associates. They're very familiar with our system, with the water and sewer that's out there, because this is going to be not only stream restoration, but also walking paths. There's going to be a lot of dirt work, some bridges put in. So because this is a in a floodplain, there's a lot of federal permits and work that has to be done. So this, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get down to it for you. So this agreement we've got itemized here, and so we went through a negotiation phase. We got them to throw in some things for us, so we were more, but we got it negotiated down. $671,500 is what this agreement is for, and the way we did this agreement is it gets us through the schematic phase services, and it gets us through survey and design, and through bidding and award for a contractor. It stops there because we didn't want to get charged more fees from the engineer than we needed to if the project came in lower or their scope that was changed. So once we get through the award phase, then we'll kind of go into a second phase of the contract here for the construction management portion of it. So I just wanted everyone to be aware. It was just a little maneuver we made to try to save a little bit of money, so we don't get a lump sum fee that's included for construction costs that are more than what the actual construction costs are, if that makes sense.
Okay. Questions, council?
And remember, this is not town funds. These are all state funds that were given for this project.
Can we move that to the consent agenda? Anyone have a problem with that? Okay, consent, thank you.
Unfortunately, this whole project is not a reimbursement grant, so we already have the $2.2 million in our
Good.
reserves, so it makes paperwork a lot easier.
Makes it easier to get started.
Yeah.
Item K, agreement for engineering design, we just done that. Item L, budget amendments.
So we'll have 2 budget amendments. One will be for the docking station for the generator that council approved at the last meeting at Public Works facility. And then we'll also have a budget amendment because if we do the fireworks on July 4th, like we talked about the last meeting, there will be additional costs incurred with that. So we'll have that budget amendment at that meeting.
Okay.
And
So will we know what those additional costs are gonna be?
we're working our hardest to pull those together, yeah. It's been a struggle to try to find someone to do fireworks, but I think we're working on that, and I'm pretty confident we'll have some numbers by that meeting.
Okay.
Because we'll need to get a contract nailed down with the fireworks display, so we don't lose out on that.
How about music, Bo? You know anything about?
We haven't gotten to that part yet, so yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces here.
And we know how much it's gonna cost for our employees at time and a half?
Yeah, we're running those calculations now. Right now, we're going through and getting all the hours that each individual would work. The key with the July 4th is because, you know, in the past, Burke React, they would come and do the traffic and enforcement for us. And our contract with them was $3,500, and they would supply 12 people for that. So because they're going to be in Morganton that day on July 4th, we've got to make up the slack for for those 12 people. So we're working through those numbers as well. But we'll have something nailed down as far as man hours and things like that.
Well, I have two fundamental questions about this. That's in the next fiscal year, it's not in this fiscal year.
The monies for the July 4th, like the fireworks contract, all those contracts, they're paid in this fiscal year because we got to secure those contracts now. And then the way the payroll dates work is there's 26 pay periods, so that would be our 26th pay period in that. So it would all come out of this year's budget. We just got.
And what is the change? I mean, the council never set the date before, so why did setting the date cause a change? Because the adopted budget, the date for that festival was not based on July 4th. It was based on the Friday before in the adopted budget. Was that in the budget, the date?
Well, the dollar amounts for contracts based on that date are.
But was the date in the budget? I don't think the council ever got to deal with that date because I've been trying for several months to find out when we're gonna celebrate Independence Day next year, and we just determined that at our last meeting.
Okay.
I'm not sure what your question
Which
is, sir, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why this is a budget amendment at this time.
Because it's in this year's physical budget.
And the
All right, but why did it get changed? The council never said it was not gonna be on July 4th.
The reason, are you asking why is it gonna cost more? Is that the basic question?
Well, or maybe I'm asking why wasn't it budgeted more in the first place?
Because it wasn't gonna cost more until we moved it to the 4th.
We didn't move it.
We did, we made a motion.
Y'all
and it
made a
passed.
motion.
It was never moved.
Yeah, it was.
It
No, it
was,
wasn't.
yeah,
We
last
moved
month.
it last month
We
to
didn't move
July
it.
4th. Yes, we did.
We said it last month. It was never, this council never set the date for the 2025 Independence Day. Never did. I'm telling you, if somebody can find it in the minutes, fine, but I'm telling you, I never could.
Right. The budget and the budget amounts are based on the Friday before the 4th. So if we change it from that date, now the date was never discussed during the budget, it was just the numbers were in there for that date.
Yeah, but I think
So-
what you're saying is not that we changed it. That the staff was making the assumption that they were gonna have it a week early. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's always been a week early, so that's.
No, it hasn't been.
Okay.
Well,
Very
anyway,
well.
having it
Anyways.
on July 4th is gonna cost more
Then, if what?
than if we had it the Friday before.
Well, we never said we were gonna have it the Friday.
Well, it doesn't, what matters right now is it's gonna cost more. We gotta have a budget amendment to pay for it.
Why do we have to do the budget amendment now?
Because we have to pay for it out of this fiscal year's
But no one
budget.
wants to pay for it before January, do we?
We have to secure
Yeah.
contracts.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we can't hire a fireworks display company and then not pay them, or at least a deposit. So
Look, we've got a $700,000 budget in community affairs, and whatever this is gonna cost, you're saying the chief financial officer and the department head can't find
I'm
whatever
just-
this cost is gonna be out of $700,000?
I'm just reporting how much extra it's gonna cost, and that's the direction I was given for July 4th. So that's what it is.
We as a council need to see the extra amount of money that it's gonna cost. We just need to know that up front.
And we also need to know that there is not room anywhere in that $700,000 budget to accommodate that extra cost, whatever that extra cost is.
Okay, but it comes across all departments, not just community affairs, because all departments are chipping in for salaries, and our salaries are very fine-tuned to what we budget for. So if we're adding extra hours to their
Yeah, well,
workload,
let's see all the numbers. I'm just,
yeah.
again,
I don't want to be up here.
we're talking about a meeting 2 weeks from tonight. We haven't seen the numbers, and if we have to decide 2 weeks from tonight and adjust the budget 2 weeks from tonight, I hope we have those numbers ahead of time and not just the Friday before the meeting.
We're working on it. So I don't want to be up here asking for more money than we need either, but with the change, with it being on July 4th, I'm just telling you it's going to cost us more, so.
Okay, we'll move those to the December 2nd agenda. And then we'll have the interim manager's report and mayor and council comments. And at this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir?
I thought we were gonna have the interim manager's report, we're not?
That-
Okay, I would like to make a couple comments if I could. I'm sorry to indulge the council, but I worked on this pretty hard. I think I got it down to 5 minutes. I'd like to take just a few minutes to answer the question I've been asked several times recently. Whether from Valdese neighbors, old friends across the nation, or family members, the question is, how can you sit there and endure those hateful and unfair attacks month after month? My simplest analogy is how I sit in the backyard with my dog each evening with mosquitoes buzzing around me. As all dog lovers understand, mosquitoes are nothing compared to your dog's need for some end-of-day yard time. On the positive side, this brief introduction to public office has given me a new perspective on everyone who devotes their lives to public service and elective office at any government level. I now have a new appreciation for their service and an understanding of how they ignore distractions. While we bring opinions and knowledge from our life experiences, each of us is simply one vote in decisions made by the majority. Our job satisfaction comes solely from the small part each of us plays in our interaction with other council members and the manager we hire. Councilwoman Ward, Councilman Ogle, and I answered the calls from numerous citizens who felt their needs were ignored and who were concerned about the 2023 tax hike and potential long-term debt. Before being sworn in, we initiated meetings with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments to hire an interim manager and obtain a proposal for the town's first ever citizen-based strategic plan. Both were adopted unanimously by the entire 5-member council. In December, this council unanimously voted to cancel a project that had grown from $6.5 million to over $10 million with no end in sight. That eliminated a USDA loan that would have given Valdese the highest long-term debt of 85 similar-sized North Carolina towns. This week, at the Old Rock School, the rededication, the town will celebrate over $1.6 million in renovations, of which only slightly over $200,000 came from tax dollars. Nearly $1.5 million were funded by grants and donations made possible through the hard work of the staff who started applying for grants several years ago. Another $151,000 was raised through the creativity and hard work of the staff and donations by 124 generous citizens and businesses. That fantastic accomplishment was partly enabled by a behind-the-scenes effort in which I had the pleasure of working with Councilman Paul Mears. As a result of a small ad hoc group we convened, the council approved the project in February with the assurance that it would not reduce the town's reserve funds. The most outstanding achievement of the 2024 council was our unanimous adoption of the fiscal 24-25 budget, which gave all property owners a 20% tax cut. A few residents even criticized that, saying they didn't need it or that it was a mere pennies a day. Yet, what greater reward can there be than the knowledge that many residents on fixed income in Valdese had their needs met by their medical bills paid by that $60 or $80 or $100 they got from that tax cut. My final example of great satisfaction from a tiny role came when we learned that our Public Works Department needed a backup generator to operate essential equipment during a power outage. A local source quoted a solution costing over $100,000 and taking over a year to deliver. A little research into the secondary market for this type of industrial equipment turned up a lead that interim manager Weichel diligently pursued. As a result of his responsiveness, a backup generator will be delivered shortly and at a cost closer to $30,000. Individual council member roles in each of these examples were minimal, yet the reward of knowing you had a small part in something that impacted many people makes it all worthwhile. For example, while a savings of $70,000 may seem insignificant to people accustomed to $7 million town budgets or $20 million school system budgets, it's very significant to taxpayers on fixed income. How many people would realize that $70,000 that we saved, that interim manager Weichel will save on this generator purchase, is the equivalent of the total property taxes paid by 150 owners of the smallest homes in Valdese? Yes, 150 owners. So in answer to the question I get about a few adverse reactions, like pesky mosquito bites, they're nothing. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.